Welcome everyone to Rewind Recap Relive, where legends and rising stars meet. I'm your host Jonah, and we're here with a great interview today with ECW original and founding member of the BWO and member of the Job Squad, the Blue Meanie, coming on with the Fat Femme Asian sensation, Mateo Valentine. You're gonna love this interview, I promise. We talk early days of ECW, character development, Mateo Valentine's journey into the world of professional wrestling from at first wanting to be an actor. We talk Blue Meanie training with Al Snow in the beginning, some funny road stories and more. Stay tuned, but first let's get into next week's episode and the winner of the Blue Meanie pins, who just happens to be Kenneth Stones. Congratulations, aka Kofi Weedston of the Dirty Heels podcast, our podcast brothers. Man, congratulations, you're the winner, and I'll be in touch. Well. Next week's episode is fantastic. We're continuing with the ECW Originals theme, and we've got Joel Gertner, the quintessential stud muffin, coming on with the young professor. This is a great interview that highlights the importance of commentary, managerial work, ring announcing, and so on and so forth. If you ever wondered what the responsibilities were from people who were really there in the middle of the action, from hosting a show, from letting all the audience know what's going on, this is the episode for you. And of course, we hear some great ECW tales from the quintessential stud muffin, the lyrical miracle himself, along with many other slogans. Joel, insert nickname here, Gertner. So that's next week on the show. Don't miss it. It's going to be fantastic. I can assure you of that. Stay tuned. We've taken care of everything. All that's left is for you guys to go down below and click that subscribe button so we can keep producing content for you each and every week. We just hit 500. We're a little ways past it. So if you subscribe now, you could be in the 500 club, and that's pretty cool if you ask me. Make sure you don't miss Joel Gertner, the quintessential stud muffin, and the young professor next week. I'm telling you, it's going to be a phenomenal interview. And like this video, share it around, tell all your friends you're watching the Blue Meanie and Mateo Valentine. Click that notification bell, ding ding ding, so you don't miss a thing here on Rewind Recap Relive. And please enjoy Blue Meanie and Mateo Valentine. See you soon. Our first guest comes to us from Chicago-style wrestling, like many of our previous guests. He just hit his first year in the business, his 1-year mark in his pro wrestling career. Please welcome the Fat Femme Asian sensation, Mateo Valentine.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Fat Femme Asian sensation, sassy, never shady.
And our next guest is a legend in the wrestling business, one of the most beloved personalities ever. He is a former WWE star, ECW original, and of course, member of the Blue World Order. Please welcome the Blue Meanie.
Hello.
I love doing it. I love when I watched you doing that, and it's like, oh, it's so energetic and all that stuff. With your
dance was a happy accident, you know.
Oh, it was?
Oh yeah, just Paul said, "Hey, can you dance?" I went, "Sure." And inside, I'm going.
And it became iconic just like that. It's crazy.
Always say yes.
Yeah, that's what I learned. That's what I learned and all that stuff, because it's like you never know when the opportunity. It's like when you say yes, it's like you never know when that whole thing is just going to be it and all that stuff.
Unless it's something ultimately that's going to kill you. You know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like, yeah. Do you want to take thumbtacks to the face? No.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Well, to start it off, I'd love to start at the beginning for you both and just learn how it is you got into the world of professional wrestling. So, Mateo, can you go first, please, and just tell us how you got on that path?
Of course. I call myself a late bloomer and all that stuff into the professional wrestling world, because growing up, I didn't even know about professional wrestling until I believe my junior year of college, when I was at the University of Pittsburgh, and I was getting my bachelor's of science. And while I was doing that, I was in the theater department a lot at the University of Pittsburgh. And the big thing during that whole time was fight choreography, was learning how to fight with daggers, guns, swords, hand-to-hand combat, and all that stuff. And then I think through the power, because I was like Googling like fight choreography, like even like Star Wars, like Star Wars, like lightsaber fighting, which was actually like a sport that I found out. And like somehow through the power of YouTube or Google or through like my cookies and all that stuff, like wrestling happened. Like there was wrestling on my YouTube, and I was like, oh, okay. I think it was an old Gail Kim match that that I saw. It was an old Gail Kim match. And I was like, oh, Gail Kim, Asian, come on, let's see that. And so I saw it and I was like, this is amazing. To me, it was like the ultimate form of physical theater and nonverbal communication. And then since then I was like hooked. I was hooked to watching. I watched the product. I watched WWE. I watched Impact when AEW was a thing. I watched that. I even Googled and I went back into, thank God for the power of University of YouTube, because there was all this history that I watched. So I went back to like the 90s, early 2000s, all that stuff. How I got into professional wrestling to actually becoming a professional wrestler. After I graduated college, I came back to Chicago and I decided to act professionally. So I was, you know, that whole Billy Kay thing where she's like trying to like push the headshot and the resume and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I did that. I had to do that the entire time. I emailed casting directors, all like theater companies and all that stuff, being like, here's my headshot, here's my resume, what's a good time for me to go in and audition and all that stuff. And so I think there was a time in 2019 where I was part of like a theater production that was very unprofessional, and it was unsafe to the point where the entire cast decided to leave the show. And so that made me think, I've been hustling in this world for so long while being quote unquote a mark for professional wrestling.
Yeah.
That I was like, it's like I've been grinding so hard and I've been hustling in this field, and I don't feel like I got some kind of value. I don't have any kind of like pull or anything, like where no one really like knows me and all that stuff. Right. And I see all my friends have these good connections, and I was like, why don't I do it? And so I was kind of down on myself. And then what really was the straw that broke the camel's back was a friend of mine was directing a show, and I kid you not, it was a Christmas professional wrestling show.
What an interesting topic. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting topic. Santa Claus, it was like, it's like Santa Claus like decides to do like a one night, all like the Christmas like people that people might know and all that stuff, for like a one night like professional wrestling Christmas fight night. Mm-hmm. And so I auditioned, I did the callback and all that stuff, but I didn't get cast. And they knew that I was the professional. I was like the mark. I was the mark. Right. During my theater, like when I was in rehearsal, backstage, or anything, I was watching professional wrestling the entire time. I even was watching like YouTube and all that stuff, like the old I think it was like 720p, like how to do like professional wrestling moves when you shouldn't really know. Don't do it if you're not a professional. And all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that was really the straw that broke the camel's back. And I remember I saw a show at Chicago Style Wrestling where I think it was in October, where Tommy Dreamer was the main event with Filth King Broodbreaker. And it was, the entire show from top to bottom was amazing. And so come January 2020, I decided to hit up the head trainer, Steve Boz, and be like, hey, I would love to train to become a professional wrestler. I have an acting background and all that stuff, and I haven't looked back ever since.
That is such a cool journey. Wow, you took us on the whole path there, and I love it. And Meanie, how about yourself now? Did you grow up a fan, and what was your first foot in the door for professional wrestling?
I first watched professional wrestling 1982. one day I lived in a small town called Gloucester, New Jersey, which is right across the river from Philadelphia. And I went to my neighbor. I was about 8 years old. I go to my neighbor Sean. I was like, "Hey, I'm about to watch the Phillies game. You want to come over and watch some baseball?" He goes, "I can't watch. I'm watching wrestling." I go, "Well, what's wrestling?" So I go over his house to watch wrestling and fell in love with it. I don't remember the whole show, but I remember the one match that I knew hooked me was Tony Green and Rick Martel losing the WWF tag team titles to Mr. Fuji, Mr. Saito. I was like, oh, that's it. That's what I want to do. And my family was like, oh, that's cute. Because I grew up severe asthmatic. Yeah. Every fall and every spring, I would be in a hospital 2 weeks out of the year. Change of seasons means higher pollen in the air. My asthma was allergy activated. So, I couldn't play in all the other kids' reindeer games, In high school, I tried out for the football team. I was allergic to the field. It's insane. So like when I was a kid, I was like, I want to be a professional wrestler. They're like, oh, that's cute. But I watched them every week. I bought every magazine. I, went to shows. My grandfather took me to my first show, 82. Main event was Andre the Giant, the 6-man tag, all this cool stuff.
That's so cool. Yeah.
And it was kind of a cool bonding moment with me and my grandparents. I lived with my mom too and my grandparents, but my grandparents were the wrestling fans. My mom was, she was just, she couldn't.
Yeah.
Oh, imagine when I got into wrestling. So, or got into ECW. But yeah, all along the lines, I've always watched wrestling, always fantasized about being a professional wrestler, visualized myself wanting to be a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
And, once I got into business, I realized if you can visualize something, you can do it, But, as time went on, I went through grade school, high school. I was the wrestling kid in the school.
Right.
In high school, I became aware of the wrestling newsletters. And through that, I became like the knowledgeable wrestling kid in school because a lot of people didn't have access to that stuff. And I'm reading that stuff. I was like, you're never going to believe what's going to happen next week. How do you know? I was like, can't say, man.
You were like the encyclopedia. You were like the encyclopedia / like the TMZ of professional wrestling and all that stuff. That sounds amazing.
I had the scoops. But and through the wrestling newsletters, I found wrestling schools. Well, the most famous wrestling school at the time was the Monster Factory in Baltimore, New Jersey, which is still going today, where I coach sometimes. Before the whole apocalypse.
Yeah.
And I did a tryout there and went pretty good. It was the day after WrestleMania. I want to say WrestleMania 8, which was in Indianapolis. Whichever one was in Indiana, that's the one I tried out. And now, like the 11 students 11 people who auditioned or tried out, like me and 2 other guys got called in the room and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. My Headbanger Thrasher put me through my my tryout, which is pretty cool. And then Headbanger Thrasher was there. Of course, Pretty Boy Larry Sharp was there, and NWA promoter Dennis Corluzzo was there, who later would go on to book me once I got into wrestling. But for whatever reason, I didn't pick the Monster Factory. In hindsight, it was probably good that I didn't, because if I was still closer to home, I think my family would have tried to talk me out of it once they saw the bumps and bruises and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was the baby boy. I was the blonde-haired baby boy.
So it was hard for them probably.
Yeah, they didn't want to see me go through that. But I became a fan of the Malenkos.
Okay.
Joe and Dean Malenko had this spectacular tag match with the British Bulldogs in All Japan that I had seen. I was like, I want to, and I found out Malenkos had a school. I was like, oh, I got to go there, right? So I write letters. I start corresponding with a woman named Phyllis Lee, who worked with Malenkos, but she lived in Ohio. She used to be down at the school with their father, Boris, and stuff like that. So we start corresponding. And in that time, I graduated high school. I started working in the casinos and saving up my money. Every week I would put money in the sock drawer and then money towards, bills and stuff like that. So eventually I save up enough for tuition. And then I send in my tuition to this woman, Phyllis Lee. Phyllis Lee is like the den mother to a lot of wrestlers. She helped.
Okay.
So she helped X-Pac in the business. She helped Raven and numerous other people. So I
Wow,
sent her.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. She was like a den mother. She used to wrestle back in the day, and she was Boris Malenko's right hand woman, at the school, and would help out and do a lot of stuff. But she moved
Yeah.
back to Ohio. And I was like, she was telling me, here's the tuition for living in, for the Malenkos, but here's how much it costs to live down there. I was like, ooh, that's kind of stiff, for like living in a one room closet. It's like was out of my
Right, yeah.
for that time. I was like, ooh, that's kind of stiff. So she got back to me. She's like, have you ever heard of a guy named Al Snow? And at that time, Al Snow hadn't quite been broken out yet. He had been in the business for 13 years up at that point. And then, he started making a name for himself with his feud with Sabu. So I started seeing his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had these legendary matches in the Midwest with Sabu. And I was like, yeah, I heard of him because his name was showing up in the newsletter all the time. She's like, and she pitched the idea to school and all that stuff. And she's like, well, here's how much it is. And you get to live in the school. So, to live in Florida was like $600 a month. Ohio was $150 a month, but I live in the school. No brainer.
Yeah. Yeah, no brainer, right? Without Snow, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I wasn't familiar with Al at the time. And so I'm doing this like all in blind faith of a woman I've never met, going to a wrestler who I've never seen in a city that's 13 hours away from my comfort zone. So, it was a big risk. So, I drive out, the day after WrestleMania 10. You could Google. That's a good thing about wrestling. You could Google your life, your timeline. Oh, well, it was the day after WrestleMania 10. So look that up. So I drive out there and I get to the school. The whole ride there was a movie on
I'm sure.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Did you turn up the radio and think that you were like the main protagonist in like a movie and all that stuff while you were driving there? Because I do that all the time.
Well, during the course of driving out there, my alternator died, and then once I got that fixed, I'm driving through a rainstorm and my windshield wiper flies off. Thank God it was just the passenger side. I saw the driver.
Oh, good. Because like that would have been like, it's a sign, it's a sign, it's a sign.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I pull up to Al's school and I basically packed my whole bedroom from Atlantic. I was living in Atlantic City at the time. I brought every earthly possession I had, and I show up and I go, "Hi, I'm looking for Al Snow. Hi, I'm Brian." And he goes, "Hi, I'm Al. I'm leaving right now," because he was going up to drive up to Michigan to get padding for the ring from Dan to B Severn. And I was like, "Hi, bye," all that good stuff. So
so funny. Hi, I'm leaving.
Oh yeah, hi, I'm leaving. This is the first time I saw Al Snow, and he was just like, "Hi, goodbye." And then that my journey began there. And it was cool because a lot of people go to college and stuff like that, and
right.
This is my college basically because I moved to Ohio, middle of nowhere, Lima, Ohio, middle of nowhere. The locals joked that Lima stood for Lost in Mid-America. But later on, Lima would become the focal point of the show Glee. So
yes.
Yeah. So when I saw that,
how I knew that, don't ask.
It's cool, man. It's a good show. But
it's a good show.
Oh yeah, but I was fortunate, man. I took a risk.
Yeah.
I remember one night I was walking to work. I worked in Trump Plaza Casino. My mom worked at Trump Taj Mahal. We would walk to work. We'd have the same night shift hours. So we're walking to the local in Atlantic City. They have the thing called the jitney, which is just like a shuttle bus. So we're walking there and we're sitting in the corner waiting for the light to turn green. I go, I'm going to go into work tonight and give my 2 weeks notice, and I'm going to go to wrestling school. As just a matter of fact like that. And she's like, I guess that's what you want to do. And then 2 weeks later, day after WrestleMania 10, I'm driving to Ohio. Wow. But very fortunate that instincts and studying the business, watching the business, noticing trends.
Yeah.
Nobody really told me it was a work, but I kind of figured it out. You know, when I was in the golden era where you could watch different promotions, all day. So I kind of figured it out on my own. And then when I became started training with Al, I realized how I thought I knew it all, and then I started training with Al. I realized how little I knew.
That's a perfect segue because I'd like to hear, did you take to wrestling like immediately, or was it a huge learning curve somewhere in the middle?
The training, the only part I really had trouble with was like learning the bumps in the beginning. And then,
Yes.
Al,
Yeah.
thank God I had Al as a trainer because he was really like a big brother. That talk about the learning curve and stuff like that. And I was doing it all wrong, and there were, I would try to take a bump, roll out a ring, and go sit down in the living room because there's a commons area. And we'd just come out and go, okay, what's wrong? And he would work me through that. But like, I learned a lot on car rides with Al Snow.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would like I lived in a school. He would do morning sessions, evening sessions, because people would drive down from Canada, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, all over, would converge in a small town. So he would give people opportunities to either work out day or in the morning or at night. And I did both.
Yeah.
So that was a huge learning curve. But like I was working the indies. And on Fridays, instead of having class, we would load into his minivan because he was a family man, and go along. It was like a class trip, instead of going to the we were going to indie shows.
That's so
And
cool.
it was on those indie shows, on those 3 or 4 hour car rides, I learned how much of the business I really didn't know.
Right.
I'd be like, oh, it's like this, right? And he goes, no, dummy. In a loving way.
Yeah.
But just you can learn all you want about, you train a chimp to do what we do, with, doing moves, holds, high spots and all stuff. But it's the stuff in between, like the whys, the wins, and the wheres of what to do and how to do and how to present yourself in the ring and present yourself in the public eye. Because I don't care how talented anybody is, one wrong interaction with a veteran or now in the social media age, one wrong tweet and your career's over,
Right.
You need to
I can definitely agree with that because I'm grateful for my professional theater and my theater background, because the most important thing that I was taught is no matter what you do, you have to treat yourself like you're a business.
Yep.
You have to treat yourself like a business. You have to brand yourself. You have to figure out a way to network and all that stuff. And so it's just like learning and doing that. I definitely can agree with you on that. And it's so amazing to hear that, and so validating to hear.
Yeah, you are a business. When I coach kids over at the Monster Factory, you are your business. And not only are you a business, you're a satellite of the person who trained you. I was trained by Al Snow, and there's a point where he was like, okay, you've done all this stuff, I've helped you get all these bookings and stuff, but it's time to go out into the world and leave the net,
flock.
Speak.
Yeah.
But everything I did, whether on those shows that Al booked me on or everything else, was a reflection of Al Snow.
Yes.
So to where if I did something good, they'd be like, Brian does really.
Who trained you and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And if I screwed up, Al,
who trained you?
Al, what's with your boy? They go to Al and try to get Al to, straighten me out. Thankfully, it wasn't like that, but.
I'm knocking on wood that it's just like my trainer at Chicago Style Wrestling is Steve Boz.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. And so
and
so I'm hoping it's like whenever it's like when I go to like other promotions and all that stuff, I hope I get that knock of approval being like, hey, this boy's like I'm really good and all that stuff. Like I like to hear that and all that stuff, even though I would just like, let me hear some more criticism, but I just what I bring to the table is what he taught and all that stuff. And that's I hope I get that and all that stuff.
Yeah, Steve's a good dude. When I first broke in my first year, I did Al sent us over to Chicago for Windy City Wrestling for Sam
Mhm.
DeSero and Steve Boz. I think Steve was on those shows. I've known
Mhm.
him for a while now, and you're in good hands.
Oh,
So
thank you.
he's very talented. But
Mhm.
when it comes to wrestling, there's a difference between being book smart and then street smart. You know,
Mhm.
you can learn all the moves, but the business, the street,
Yep.
it's being savvy and having good
Yeah.
instincts that really gets
Yes.
through. Because I've seen people who might not be that good in the ring, but they've gotten through the business because they had enough savvy to, work themselves through the system, so to speak.
It's about working smart, not working hard and all that stuff.
Well, you can work hard, but it's
I
the,
mean that,
the right
but
thing. No. It's just the right things to do. You always
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
you put in the miles, you put in the training, you watch the shows and stuff like that. Now I watch wrestling I can still watch wrestling as a fan, but sometimes I take my wrestler hat off and I put my
Yeah.
back in, and vice versa.
Oh,
You know,
That's so cool to hear.
I do that all the time now, especially when I'm with like my friends who aren't professional wrestlers and all that stuff, and they're watching it with me, and I can just be like, oh, we're in the heat now. It's like, how do you know? It's like, I just know. Okay. It's like, I just know. Okay.
yeah,
It's just
I'll watch
really fun.
I'll watch matches from different angles. Sometimes I'll watch the match, and then sometimes I'll just sit there and watch the crowd and watch them
Mhm.
react to what they're
Yeah.
watching, because ultimately it's about the crowd.
Yes.
Without a crowd,
Yes.
we don't have a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without the crowd, we have a hobby.
Exactly.
So there's different ways to watch. You can watch as a worker, you can watch as a fan, you can watch the match for learning how to work, and you can watch the crowd for seeing what draws emotion from people and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So yeah, I watch it
Mhm.
from and watch everything. There's a lot of stuff I watch that I might not like, but hey, they drew people to it, and somebody's paying
Exactly.
for it, so
Yeah.
they got to be doing something right. And then, like, how can I incorporate into my style and stuff like that? And we all have our influences and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Kind of like any good rock and roll band that starts out as a
Yeah.
cover act until they find their own voice. My favorite band is Van Halen, but they started out in clubs playing other people's songs, and then they start sneaking in their own music, and then before you know it, they get signed to a record label, and all these years later, they have their own hits. Meanwhile, they started off doing other people's music, which in wrestling, I was mimicking. I was just a mimic. I was
Yeah.
mimicking what I saw, but
Yeah.
eventually, thankfully, through Raven and his coaching, Al was a great coach too, but you never truly have one trainer.
Mhm.
Yes.
I was fortunate enough to sit there and listen to, Raven put matches together every week in ECW, and that was invaluable.
Yeah. Mateo, for your career now, you wanted to be a pro actor. Have you incorporated any of those skills you learned during your time studying to be a pro actor that you incorporate into your in-ring style?
Oh, most of it, I think most of it is, I think selling. That's how I
So,
could say
yeah.
it. Selling. I'm normally a baby face and all that stuff, so I get beat up a lot. And so,
Right.
and so it's for me, most of that stuff I do is selling promos, talking, how to, and like even the behind the scenes stuff, how I treat myself and how I present myself to other people and all that stuff. So I definitely use those skills to in my professional wrestling toolbox. And what is it? I
Yeah.
hate it when people say that. It's like, you put these tools in a toolbox and all that stuff. It's like, that's so corny and all that stuff, but it's true.
Yeah.
And all that. But all those years of of professionally acting and going through it and all that stuff, and then it's like when I take a suplex and I'm selling, it's like, oh, this hurts, but I am going to make sure that this hurts so people can look at me and see the pain and
Right.
relate and all that stuff. And that's what I do. Because like what you said, Brian, about the audience and all that stuff. Like, and I'm usually a professional theater actor, and so the audience is everything.
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff. You feed, it's like you feed off them and all that stuff. And like and it's like, I remember like every time, it's like when a show would start and all that, when a show would start, like the first scene, and when we would and the first scene in front of people, and when that scene was done, everybody would be like, how's the audience,
Mm-hmm.
are they receptive and all that stuff?
How's the house, kid?
Yeah, like, how's the house, seriously, how's the house and all that. And so it was just like, we needed that. And so if they were if they were very receptive and they were laughing and all that stuff, we would give it a little bit more. If we were doing a dramatic scene, if we were doing something dramatic, like if someone was dying on stage and they were into it, I would be like, I am going to give my best Tony Award, Jeff Award winning cry right now, because these people paid $15 to watch me sweat and cry and all that. And so I definitely relate to that, because especially, oh yeah, and also facial expressions too. Facial expressions, looking like ring placement. That's like that's a like the little that's a little thing I keep on forgetting, like ring placement, because I'm always learning about blocking, where I should present myself to like hard cam, or where should I go to the audience and all that stuff. And so yeah, there are a lot of things that I might forget that I took from my theater career that I'm taking into professional wrestling, but those are some examples that I am aware of right now.
Very cool.
Thank you so much.
Very cool. I love that.
If I could pass on like a little piece of it, there's sell but don't die kind of thing. A lot of mistakes I see younger people in the business do is they'll take a bump and they'll just lay there. And there's stages to properly selling, because if you're in a real fight and you get knocked down, you should be able to get like right back up. And and keep moving forward. Baby faces move forward, heels back up. I used to, anytime I wrestle Tracy Smothers, Tracy Smothers go, Meanie, you do this, I'll do that, and we'll be okay. So there's stages to it, there's levels to it. If I can, the best sellers, two of the best sellers in the business, Ricky Morton, Ricky Steamboat, and they eventually they would, as a baby face, you keep fighting back, but eventually the heel does something to break you down. And then of course, make the comeback. But when I've been fortunate enough to do some acting my own, doing like some TV and movies and stuff like that. And it definitely translates, because in wrestling, everything's one take. You screw up, the crowd will let you know. It's kind of like, it's definitely live theater. And some of the people I've done acting work for, they're like, oh, kind of got the hang of this. So I was like, well, I kind of been doing it live every night for a couple of years. But like you said, with the blocking, and when I coach people over at the Monster Factory, I always tell them, things happen in beats. I was like, in acting, you do something, you take a beat, you go, you'll slam the guy, 1 beat, 2 beat, hit the ropes, and then do something, to pace yourself and time it out, let it breathe, fine.
That's for me, especially because I am new. I'm very much of a go, 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 go. Oh wait, I forgot to stop for the second. Let me stop for a second. Go, 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 go. And so I notice about that myself. I forget to breathe and take it in and all that stuff. And so
it's always good for a promoter to have a talent that they need to reel back in, instead of have somebody that they need to give incentive to and push.
It's a good point. Yeah. Exactly.
I was always like, I was always that girl. That just like, whenever I was in high school and in college, they would just be like, I need you to like, you're like right here. You're like right here. I love that. Keep it, but I need you right down here. I love that.
It's like somebody cut my hair. They're like, oh, I can always chop some off. I can't put it back on though. Start off, like I said, like, there's times I've been in the ring with folks where it's just like, you're feeding for the next thing, and they're just not there. And it's like a slow death. And it's like, oh my God, please, please work with me, But that's I was that guy at one point too, so I don't
Okay.
really get mad because there's people who are
Right.
patient with me, and like when I first started training, Al was kind enough to put me in there with a lot of veterans who were patient and were not only working with me, but they were teaching me lessons while I was in the ring. And some of the cool things Al would do, like during training, like if I went to watch him work, he would work something he taught me that day into his match, so I could
Oh, yeah.
see
Oh, that's so cool.
I could
Yeah.
see it
Yeah.
unfold. And I go,
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
we'd be on the car ride, be like, he's like, did you notice anything? I would call out the spot and he'd be like, see, that's how it works, So
Yeah.
I
Like,
was so fortunate that, to have a coach like Al. He would have me work with guys like Denny Cass,
Yeah.
Dan to be Severn, all these veterans and stuff like that.
He sounds like such an incredible mentor, Al Snow. He really does.
He is. Yeah, and he gets a lot of flack because sometimes in his interviews when he talks about the business, he's very passionate about it. He sacrificed a lot for this business, and for somebody like he wasn't always that. Like he seems like he's a little bit gruff and stuff like that. Where in his interviews about the business, but he truly has a passion for this business, and he not only sacrificed for this business physically, but emotionally as well, and personally and stuff like that. Because when you're in this business, you're not only paying. Wrestlers go, "Oh, I pay my dues." Well, wrestlers aren't the only people who pay dues in this business. It's the families that pay dues as well. When you're out there not making a lot of money, and the rent's due, and you got to eat, pay gas, tolls, electric, all that stuff. So Al's been through that. I've been through that, and just it's just having a passion for the business. If you don't have if this is if you're not passionate about it, it just
why do it?
just hang. Like some people gave me flack for I say if you don't at least get nervous before you walk out to the ring, what are you doing it for?
Yep.
It's not like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. No, so it's a anticipation of
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's do this.
Once I walk through the curtain, I'm a different human being.
Yep.
So
That's me. That's me. Like I remember when I debuted in a 6-man tag 2020 and I think August when things were opening up a little bit more. And I just remember it was just, I know everybody was just like saying it's like, oh, it's a 6-man tag, it's gonna be fine, da 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 da. And I was just like, I am so nervous. I'm more nervous than if I was like supposed to be doing an opening number like for a musical and all that stuff. Like, why am I more, it's like I was so nervous, but I was like, it's because I'm excited. It's because I'm excited. I'm getting my debut. I'm doing this. I'm going to be confident and all that stuff. And yeah, and no matter if I perform or anything like that, or like even doing this like beautiful interview with you, and I got nervous because I was just like, oh wow, why am I feeling like this? It's like, oh, it's because I'm excited and all that stuff, and I care about it.
Yeah.
I'd love to shift now to character development because Meanie, as I mentioned earlier, one of the most beloved personalities in the business. So can we start at the beginning of how did you become the Blue Meanie?
Well, before I was the Blue Meanie, I was just regular old Brian.
Yeah.
Boring, bland Brian. I first went by Brian St. John, and I was trying to find my way.
That's a good actor name. That's a good actor name right there, Brian St. John.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I stole that out of the PWI. Brian St. John. It's a good name. It's three syllables. Brian.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and then I started working for Sabu, and one of my classmates was a referee named Pee Wee Moore. He worked for Sabu a lot, and they're like, that name's not. He was like, that name doesn't work. And we're looking through, we're talking and we're listening to music, and he put on like Henry Rollins. I was like, well, Brian Rollins has a really good ring to it,
Yeah.
And then we like I said, another class trip. Me and Al went to this place called K&H in Columbus, Ohio, where I think they're still around, but back then everybody got their wrestling gear from K&H. Everybody WWE, WCW. You got your gear you got your tights from K&H. You got your boots from B&A, which that company doesn't exist anymore. But we drove to K&H, and K&H stood for Carl and Hildegard. It was a couple who made wrestling gear for everybody. And they had a house, and they were set up in their garage, nothing but sewing machines and fabric everywhere. It's awesome. And you walk in, you see their office, and then there's postcards from Bret the Hitman Hart, and he's with his family.
That's so cool.
He had gear made up for his kids, and then you learned that like all the hearts on his pants, each heart on his pant was for each one of his kids and stuff like that. And they're making gear for Earthquake and all that. So it's like going to Willy Wonka's. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But I found these. They had like a mix match box of stuff they had made. The guys either didn't pay for, and they're just selling it. I found like at the time in the 90s, everybody wore Zubaz. So I saw these like zebra tights. I was like, oh, these look cool. Yeah. And I got like, I was like, I'll be the zebra kid. Genius, right? No. So I was the zebra kid. Brian Rollins working the Indies, and then Al sent me back to the East Coast. And there was a series of 3 shows. I did a show in Baltimore, West Virginia, Pittsburgh. And every one of those shows was Raven and Stevie Richards. And we just kind of hit it off to the point where the Pittsburgh show, I went out and did my match, came back. And then I knew Raven was having a match. And I was like, to me, Raven was one of the best. He had the best psychology in the business. So I was like, I'm going to watch his match, right? I'm an ECW mark. I used to go to the ECW shows before I went out to train. So I watched this match. He comes back through the curtain. I was like, oh, that's a great match, Raven. He goes, hey, nice moonsault. I went, you watched my match, because I did the moonsault. Yeah. Match. So the next day, that night, as for a promoter named Norm Connors, who I owe a great part of my career to, he promoted out in Pittsburgh for Steel City Wrestling and all that stuff. We stayed at his house overnight. We just crashed on the couches or the floor or whatever. Didn't matter. And we were hanging out partying. And then the next day we went to lunch, and Raven came up with the idea. He proposed the idea. Well, Stevie's my lackey, and we're looking for a lackey for Stevie. And we had this guy in mind, and the guy they had in mind made me look like Skylo. He made me look like a Lucha Mini. This guy I was huge. He wasn't a wrestler.
Oh my god!
So the guy we have in mind, he can't do anything. He could do a moonsault. You interested? I was like, yeah, I'm interested. He goes, but you have to wear a half shirt and Daisy Dukes. I went, well, I'll be in ECW, right? He was like, yeah. I was like, I'm in.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I initially debuted for ECW in October '95, and that show got scrapped because a fan accidentally got set on fire.
What?
So in the meantime, we go back out to work for Norm. We're driving back through a blizzard, and Raven was like, hey kid, did you ever see the movie The Yellow Submarine? I was like, yeah, I was a kid. It's horrible. Yeah. But he's like, remember the Blue Meanie character? I was like, yeah. He's like, you remind me of the Blue Meanie. And he's trying to sell me hard on it. But you really didn't have to. He's like, you'll want to paint your whole body blue, but just do your hair. I was like, I'll be in ECW. He goes, yeah. I go, I'm in. All right, cool. So we drove from his house and through the blizzard, got to his house, and he was living in Cherry Hill, New Jersey at the time. And then we took a nap, and then when Blockbuster opened, we went and rented The Yellow Submarine, and we watched the movie together. And he fast forwarded to the Blue Meanie parts, and he made me study it. And then he would do this thing that they do down at WWE Performance Center now called Skull Sessions, where I would have to stand in front of him in the room. He'd sit there and call out topics. Blue Meanie do a promo on toilet paper, and in character I would have to do promos in character and stuff like that. And then he brought me to ECW, and I re-debuted, and the rest is history. But as far as character development, he wanted me to be like the letter of the law to that character from that movie, which I did in the beginning. But then we started branching off into, he got the idea for us doing parodies, kind of like Weird Al, to where like, he's like, we came out, we were the Fabulous Ones, and then we were Baron Von Stevie and Sir Meanie. He was Baron Von Raschke. Baron Von Stevie, I was Blue Dust, and then Colonel Meanie.
Yeah.
And then like through the comedy, more of me started coming out, because I grew up not only a fan of professional wrestling, but a fan of stand-up comedy, all comedy. So here I am meshing my two worlds together with pro wrestling and comedy under the development of Raven. The Wise, the Wins, the House, and the whatever's.
Right.
So through that, I eventually became the Blue Meanie became more Brian, because as every successful personality in this business is somebody using their own personality, but just turning the volume up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And all the stuff I used to get in trouble for in grade school and letters sent back home to my parents. Brian keeps making fart noises in class. Now I started getting paid to do it. So
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes.
yeah. So, every good character is somebody's own personality just turned up to another level, or the person you wish you were in real life, but society doesn't allow that. But you could do it in pro wrestling.
Yes.
It's so cool. It's so well said. Yeah. And just another thing about the BWO, I was always interested, and maybe this happened, but I missed it. Did the NWO ever have opinions on that you heard of, or did you ever? I know you were the Razor parody. Did he have anything to say to that?
I slowly started getting feedback through them, like one at a time. So the first time I got feedback on a parody was from Goldust when I was Blue Dust.
Yeah.
He was on an indie show that I went to. I was like, "Hey man, I hope you don't mind the Blue Dust thing." He's like, "No, I don't give a shit." It's great.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
I go to the WWE and then there's X-Pac. I was like, "Hey man, hope you guys didn't mind the whole BWO thing." He's like, "No, we loved it." He said, a lot of times after a WCW show, the NWO guys would find a local bar and just find the local wrestling and find wrestling on TV because they're still fans and they're
Right. Yeah.
But eventually I met Scott Hall because Scott Hall did a loop with ECW like early 2000s. I looked a little different at the time. I had lost some weight and I wasn't really the Blue Meanie, but I was. And I was like, "Hey man, hope you don't mind that whole BWO thing." He's like, "No, it's great." And Scott Hall went on to tell me that he said, "Well, the BWO is a parody of the NWO and the Blue Meanie is parody of me. And the BWO is named after him, so I should be the leader of the NWO." That's what he would tell Scott Hall and all those.
Oh, that's
guys.
so funny.
He would, rib them and break their about it. Yeah. Oh, I should be the leader if he's me. So, and then eventually I met Kevin Nash, and he's like, "Nah, parody's the serious, imitation's the serious form of flattery." And
yeah.
And then eventually, my friend Julian Bradley and Riley Reinhardt, they have a promotion called Freedom Pro. It used to be out of Wisconsin, then Tennessee, and they don't run real much anymore. But they did Stevie Richards versus Kevin Nash, BWO versus NWO, which was fun to do. He actually wanted to put the money down to have a BWO NWO match, but it just never worked out.
Never happened. A lot of fans would love to see that, I'm sure. Even still.
Love that.
It would be a dog and pony show, but it would still be fun.
Yeah.
It would be so fun to watch.
Yeah.
It would be.
Yeah. I'm very fortunate. Very fortunate.
Yeah.
I got to do some of the things I did and learn from some of the people I do. I never made $1 million in this business, but I got paid royally in experience and friendship.
Yes.
And so, Mateo, could we hear now how you've developed this personality that you rock now, the Fat Femme Asian sensation? I'd love to hear how you developed that.
So when I first started to train and all that stuff, when I talked to Steve Boz and all that stuff, I told him, and I'm not afraid to say it anymore. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm openly gay. I'm openly LGBTQ plus. There's no hiding it. There's from my voice, how I present myself, and all that stuff.
You kind of let the cat out of the bag in the beginning of the.
Yes.
I'd be surprised if you say you were openly straight. I'd be like,
oh yeah. I think I would win an Emmy Award if I ever played anything straight. I would win like all the awards.
I'm having fun with it, by the way. I think it's awesome.
Thank you. It's like
not to cut you off. Please, but wrestling is a microcosm of society, and this is where we are in the world. And I think your character could be a great role model.
Thank you so much. And that's exactly what I want to do in the futures and in the years of my career and all that stuff. But when I wanted to develop my character and all that stuff, I was just like, okay, I know a lot of, I like what you said. It was like the best characters are you times 1,000 times 10, or even the people that you want to be. I remember I was at training, and we were doing an international spot. So we were like we were doing a shoulder tackle, then we would shoulder tackle the guys down, and we would have to like do something to like go for the drop down, leapfrog, vertical, all that stuff. And so I go for the shoulder tackle, and I decided to go for the idea of like trying to dip it low, like squat, like do like a little like seductive squat, like down, like with my butt and all that stuff, like
Right.
like as if I was a fembot and all that stuff, and everybody, and like Boz popped for it, everybody popped for it, and then the weeks developed and all that stuff, and I want to thank the Chicago Style Wrestling Academy, shout out, and all that stuff, because they really helped me develop this character and and all of this, because even though I was like out like publicly, even though I'm out publicly and all that stuff, I was still scared to show it off and all that. But with professional wrestling, they were telling me, it's like, no, like stick out your butt more. Stick out your butt. Do it, like go for that Bronco Buster and be the diva that you want to be. And then all of a sudden I was like, yes, yes. And I like to think, because it's like professional wrestling helps me be more comfortable with myself and be more comfortable with who I am and all that stuff. And so I came up with my, it's essentially myself, but like gayer than RuPaul's Drag Race. I don't know how else.
RuPaul's Drag Race.
I don't know how else to say it, but it's just like I want to be gayer than RuPaul, but that's like going there. I don't even want to say like I don't. It's like all that, like sassy, shady, all that stuff. But then I realized it's like, oh yeah, I'm also a person of color as well. And so when I came up with Fat Femme Asian Sensation and all that stuff, in which like during the time of social media and dating applications and all that stuff, I would be bombarded with like profiles, and their profile would say no fats, no femmes, no Asians, and all that stuff publicly. Like, why? It's like you would put that on your. Why would you put that on your profile? Why would you put it on profile, girl? And all that stuff. And so I decided to. And so like me growing up with that, and the way that media portrays Asian men and all that stuff, I decided to take that back and be like, you know what? I am fat, I am femme, and I am Asian as hell. And so guess what? You're going to be taking my booty, you're going to be taking my Bronco Buster, and you're going to be doing all this. And guess what? I'm going to be as fabulous as I want and all that stuff.
Hey, me and Mrs. Meanie watch RuPaul's Drag Race religiously, and
I love hearing that.
I just love this.
Drag queens are the best shit talkers. They're the
best. Yes.
Oh
my God.
James Mansfield's like the biggest pro wrestling fan too. She does.
Oh my God. Yeah.
She does drag Hulk Hogan and stuff like that. So, no, I love the drag queens. I love that whole world.
I most of my it's like I envision myself. I wanted to be a drag queen during college and all that stuff, because like when I was in college and all that stuff, I lived below a gay bar. And all that stuff, and so I would just like be there when it would be drag night, and I was like, oh, I want to do drag and all that stuff, but then I was like, oh yeah, like Brian, you heard it talking, yeah, that's hard, like that's hard and all that stuff, but it was just. But yeah,
I love that whole world, man.
And it's that they
just started too, right? And we got to catch up on the new season. It just started.
Oh yeah, I'm caught up, honey. I'm all in the Reddit.
Spoilers. Don't spoil it.
I'm all up in the Reddit, honey. I don't want that heat. No, but yeah, it's like anyone that is watching this podcast right now, go to you want live like promos that are not from professional wrestling and all that stuff. Watch drag queens throw shade at each other.
Oh yeah,
and all that stuff.
Fucking
It's amazing and brutal because the thing is, you don't even know that they're insulting you until you know that they're insulting you and all that stuff. It's amazing, and that's how. And like I think that because it's just like that's how I get my promo work. That's how I do. How I get my character. That's how I get my femininity and all that stuff. So I think every drag queen that decides to put on a dress and all that stuff.
Yeah, me and Mrs. Meanie went to, her brother got him and her tickets to a drag roast. And she's like, well, Brian would love to go. She's like, really? I was like, yeah. So he got her a front row ticket and we sat up in the balcony and we would watch them do this roast and it was fantastic.
Oh God. Give them a microphone and on some alcohol and give them a chance to like, just talk, like literally talk crap about each other. They will go. God,
that's all about character development, and
exactly
in the world of drag, they stick to the character. And my favorite part of RuPaul's Drag Race is every year they do the snatch game, where they have to take on the character and do basically live skull sessions, live promos, character, to pop, RuPaul, the judge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So like wrestling. That's when Raven sat down and stood in front, had me stand in front of him and go, Blue Meanie, do a promo on toilet paper. That's the snatch game. They would ask him questions and in character, they would have to do these promos. Yeah. It's just like pro wrestling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's exactly like pro wrestling. So it's just like, that's how I do it. It's like RuPaul's Drag Race, drag queens, like my LGBTQ plus life, drag you, all this stuff. Into the fat femme Asian sensation Mateo Valentine and all that stuff, and it was just like, yes, it's like how like what is your character? I'm sorry.
How long you been training?
I have been training for relatively a year now. So I started in January 2020.
When I first met Road Warrior Hawk, Phyllis introduced me to him. He goes, "Oh, Hawk, this is Brian. He's our student." And Road Warrior Hawk pat me on the back, goes, "Good luck, kid. It gets worse from here." So if I could just pass on a little piece of it, like for this business, you really need thick skin. Like I said, you could basically teach a chimp,
of course,
do everything we do. Moves, hold, counter, all the wise way. But it's like the outside world of like, wrestling, which is tough. People who you think are your friends are really out to get you, and people who you think might.
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, and you won't stop learning that. But the most important thing is in this business, keep your circle small, keep your world small. If you have any, one thing Al Snow told me is like, look, if you're ever at a show and the promoters, if you're not happy with something, and you got to complain, save it for the car. Save it for the car ride home.
Yeah. Save it for the bus. Save it for the bus.
Save it for the car ride home, because if it leaks out, you have 3 other people who potentially fucking stooged on you. Just just always be smart about it. Don't let people in, but keep them at an arm's distance, because sometimes people in this business will take your personal stuff and use it against you. And just keep learning. Like I said, you're in good hands with Steve Boz.
Thank you.
I've been on shows with him beginning of my career, and the fact that he's still around, and he came from that whole crew of Christopher Daniels and Adam Pearce and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that crew. Good group of people to come from. So in this business, it's the hardest part of this business, the outside bullshit. Whether it's people trying to get ahead of you or bury you or whatever, stuff like that. All you could do is worry about the things you can control. Keep the blinders on. If somebody on this here is trying to stir you up, like, oh, that's cool, I'm going that way, you go that way, I'll go that way. You just keep moving forward, keep training, keep trying to improve. One thing I learned from Bill Alfonso, the great referee who eventually became one of the great managers, always, find ways to change your look a little bit. Like Bill would sometimes have the straight hair, then next time he's got a perm, and he would do this, that, and the other thing. And when he went to referee the match of Japan between Flair and Fujinami, he took it upon himself to get a referee shirt that had the American Japanese flag on it, and the office was like, "Oh, that's very new. That's very cool." But like, if you always, besides the stuff you do in the ring, always, kind of keep your look evolving. So when people see you each and every time, they go, something different. I just can't put my by the time they figure it out, you've sucked them in. That's why when Jake the Snake Roberts does a promo, he talks at that low level.
Right.
So you have to pay attention, and he draws you in. So just do stuff to represent your coaches well, represent yourself well, represent your cultures well, and just be a role model.
Thank you. Yes.
That's such great advice, Ryan. And you really answered our last question, which is, do you have any advice? So I'd like to just, if I could, just pick the mind of the meanie. Plug there. I think honestly, everyone watching should go watch it, because I got sucked into that the past 3 days. I've been watching tons of Mind of the Meanie. You're a fantastic storyteller. You really are.
Right.
Very engaging. And I'd just like to hear, if you have, I'm sure you have tons, but one story that comes to mind you think of fondly from your time in ECW as an ECW original. I'd love to hear any stories, maybe that we as a fans didn't get to see as much, and it really did make you happy.
Just walking in there, a kid, and coming out some sort of a man. Wrestling is a lot like school. Doesn't matter what you did in your previous school. It just depends on, it matters for what you do at that time. I could have been the coolest kid in grade school, but once I got to high school, I became a freshman. And then by the time I become a senior, graduate, I could go to college, and I could have been the coolest guy in high school. Now I'm a freshman in college, starting all over again. So I could have done, it didn't matter what I did before I got to ECW. It mattered what I did once I got to ECW. And once I graduated and got called up to WWE, it didn't matter what I did in ECW. It mattered what I did in WWE. And getting to WWE is hard, but staying there is even harder. But it's about ECW. Just being fortunate to have so many learning trees to sit under. Paul Heyman, Raven, Dreamer, Sandman, Tommy Rich, working with Tracy Smothers every night. One of the things I really looked forward to was going up to New York and going to the TV studio and watching them piece together TV shows and coming up with ideas and pitching ideas and watching them unfold either on TV or in front of people and stuff like that. Wrestling's a lot of like the world of improv. If they pitch you an idea, you don't like it, don't go, "Oh man, that's horrible. Why are we doing that?" Just go, "Okay, I can see, but what about this?" Or improv, they call it yes and.
Yes,
and then that's a lot. There's a lot of things I never wanted to do. But I go, "Oh, that's a really good idea. How about if we had this?" And if that idea spawned something, if they thought it was better than our idea, most of the time they went with it. But if you're always confrontational, go, "Oh, this sucks," and blah, 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 then people are just going to force you to do what they want to do. Most people bring joy wherever they go, and some people bring joy whenever they go, whenever they leave. Be the person that people want to flock to, not run away from. So
that's awesome.
That's how I approached my time in ECW. I tried to get along with everybody. And the bummer about wrestling is you could be friends. I'm friends with person A and person B.
Right.
I get along with person A and person B, but person A and person B hate each other. Hate each other. And, you try not to pick sides and stuff like that. It's hard not to be political in the business, or sometimes if you could be the peacemaker, which I've been too. But
I could see that,
yeah, just the politics of wrestling suck. But if you know how to navigate the landmines, you can have a good long career and stuff like that, and make some money. And ultimately, it's a business, and find ways. I mean, it's much easier now than when I broke in, and it was much easier for me as it was for the generation before me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, now you just got to put something up on YouTube. You got Twitter, Facebook, and all that stuff. Back in the day, I was making resumes and photocopying them and sending VHS tapes out, you know? So,
I think I actually have my resume, like headshot.
Oh, let's see
resume
this.
somewhere.
yeah.
Some
Go.
props.
Actually, where is it? Oh, here. Because yeah. Oh, I actually have it. So it's headshot,
There you go.
Oh,
and then my resume and all that stuff.
that's
Because I had to do it.
fantastic.
I had to do it in theater.
Yeah, I wish I still had mine. Mine was along those lines, you know. Companies worked for, trained with, all that kind of stuff. But eventually, I found my way to ECW on instinct and intuition, and
Right.
okay, I need to do this. You know, I need to go to do these shows. I need to go to this wrestling school. I need to quit my job and go to a place I've never been in 2 weeks. It's just a matter of creating. Nobody's ever going to book you sitting on the couch. You just got to create opportunities and go out and make them. And if nobody's thinking of you, give them a reason to think about you.
Give him a reason. Right.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. This was awesome. That is the Blue Meanie and Mateo Valentine. That finishes us off for this episode. So thank you both.
Well, thank you for having me. And
Thank you
for the opportunity to share the mind of the meanie.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Plug it. Yeah.
Well, that's another thing. If you don't promote yourself, why should anybody else?
Yeah.
That's it.
Woo, Mr. Daddy, boogie woogie man feel good. I tell my people, my brothers and sisters, don't you dare miss online, rewind, recap, relive. Oh yeah.